Hi, welcome to Jotnotes, a show where we dive into the world of books and the lives of authors. My name is Jenna Green, and I'm a YA fantasy author of the Imagine series and the Reborn Mark series. Joining me is Miranda O, our producer and co-host. She is a contemporary chick lit author of the Chin Up Tits Out series, and she is the privilege and honor of introducing our fabulous guest for today. Hi, Miranda.
Hi. I am thrilled to be back this evening. Jenna and I got a double whammy for you today. And we're kind of switching the gears, but kind of not. We are introducing our guest today, a woman very dear to our hearts, WL Hawkin. She writes edgy urban fantasy with a twist of murder. Now, from her loft near Vancouver, BC, I'm from Winnipeg, and we are still under a lot of snow, and so I'm a wee bit jealous of her climate. But her books or her novels actually include To Charm a Killer, To Sleep with Stones, To Render a Raven, and To Kill a King. Now, each of those are standalone, but from the Hollystone Mystery series. And her latest release, which we'll talk about today, is titled Lure. So please join me in welcoming our guest today. Hi.
Hi, Miranda and Jenna. It's nice to be back.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you back. Like I said, you're dear to our hearts. Always our conversations warm and fill our hearts and also intrigue us because you have this perspective to your writing, which we're really excited to get into and how you go about it. But so we're really excited to have you on our show again. Now, I'm intrigued. While we were doing research for our show, we discovered that you're interested and intrigued by language and archaeology and mythology. Like that's a lot of E's, but a lot of cool things. So, what interests you? How did you get into these subjects?
Oh my gosh, how did I get into them? I've been always into them. This comes from many years ago. And for sure, mythology, I fell in love with Joseph Campbell in 1990, but it comes from way back before then when I was a kid. And, I used to grow up watching movies like Jason and the Argonauts and, those real old ones with the crazy monsters and everything and all the Greek things. And then the Christian movies, which had the whole, biblical theme to them. And I just grew up with all that and I love it. It's, I think because of the archetypes, because I just get it. And then I found Joseph Campbell and I was hooked on him. Comparative mythology.
I like that. Okay, so I have a personal inkling with when it comes to your language. My kid just turned 1. Her dad is Nigerian and is fluent in Russian and also his tribal language as well. And he speaks Ukrainian, which I'm Ukrainian and don't speak Ukrainian, but hey, that's here nor there. But we also have a French immersion school in our community, and we always have this conversation about like how to teach our kid more languages and how to immerse into languages. So are you fluent in multiple languages? Like what attracts you to languages more than I do? Because
no,
I can speak Spanish and ask for a beer, and that's about the length of my second language.
Yeah, no, I'm not at all. I'm from Ontario, and so I grew up with English, and then we were forced to take French. So right. From grade 3 to about grade 9, and it was the French teacher came in with the bulletin board, and it was Le Stylo and Le Crayon and all that sort of stuff. So I can do a little bit of cereal box French.
Yeah,
on a good day. I can sort of understand a little bit, but not much. I really like Spanish, but I can't really do anything with that either. My interest in language is really based around English. I just like English words and how you put them together to make beautiful pieces out of them,
You know what? I agree with you. Like there's a lot to the English language that makes it extremely difficult, but it makes it eloquent in a way that you can string different words together and they have a very deep meaning to it or a very different perspective to it. So it does that I can resonate with that. Now, you describe yourself as an intuitive writer, so use
Mhm.
of a very functional, lovely word. Can you describe to us what you mean by that?
I can. It is my response to being called a pantser. Because I really, really hate that term. I just think it's like an ugly term.
Mhm.
And first of all, the word is not a pretty word, and it's just not. And it connotates for me somebody who's like has no idea what they're doing and no control. And that's not at all where I come from. So as an intuitive writer, I'm really digging into my muses. So I get into a kind of a meditative space, and I like open up to all my spirits and all my characters, and they talk to me, and I work from there. So I don't outline particularly. I just kind of write it as it comes. Yeah, and
I
That's
like
Miranda to a T.
I was just about to say
yeah.
thank you, Jenna, because we just finished a podcast with another fantasy author, and he was saying that, like, okay, like, if people in fantasy or authors or storytellers in fantasy have to, in his mind, they have to have a beginning and an ending. And Jenna was like, oh yeah, like I kind of like do that too. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't think I do that at all. Like, I know what my characters are like. I kind of know what topics I want to write about, but like I get into that meditative state sometimes with the help
Mhm.
of a glass of wine. And some good music, and I tune out the world and just let it flow how it's going to flow. So I
Mhm.
cannot resonate with you more. But
Mhm.
then on the flip side, it just goes to show you, like, you can write a story anyway and it can still be successful.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
Whatever works
I
for
love it.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, I know people that are so like they write the outline, and they stick very rigidly to the outline, and I've said, you know, what if your character does something that you don't expect? Oh no, that's not allowed. It's like, what? What?
Oh, my characters never listen. They're feral pterodactyls that don't. They
Feral
never listen. Mm,
pterodactyls.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh
mean,
goodness.
I love it when my characters do something that I have no idea it's going to happen. And I think, like, for me, like that raw emotion comes through when,
Mhm.
so, say somebody, like, I had a couple of characters that actually died and I didn't know they were going to die. And I was like, what? And cried through the whole time I was writing it on the computer. And that, I think that raw emotion translates.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's just a really beautiful thing that happens when you allow them to do what they need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And something that came up last time we were chatting, or the previous podcast. Oh my goodness, get your words out. Was that I had asked our guest if he was going through grief and loss because he was writing about grief and loss, and I
Mhm.
and I and I take that as from an intuitive point of view that I tend to draw from what I'm going through personally. So is that something that you take with your intuition and writing? Is it when you are going through some sort of something XYZ, is that translating in your stories?
That's a really good question. And I don't know if I know the answer to that question.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't. I think you might have stumped me here.
We win. No, I don't know.
no.
Yeah, I don't know.
It resonated with me because for me, when I was going through my trauma, whatever, it just turned out to be such good book material. And maybe when I was going through the heat of it, I wasn't prepared to write about it or even
Mhm,
reflect on it. But
mhm,
then when I moved forward through life and I got to a point where I have a story to tell, then everything that I was going through ended up going into and translating into the books. The big feelings that I was feeling translated into my characters. And so I like to ask that question, especially, I
mhm.
mean, you're writing fantasy with a little bit of murder. So it's not like you're living in a murder mystery every day, but again,
Hopefully
your
not.
characters, right? Hopefully not, but your characters are still feeling big feelings, and just
Mhm.
curiosity, like if those big feelings are matching your big feelings, or if you're just drawing from the outside spirits, as you say, and letting them kind of guide you during your story.
Well, definitely when I was writing the Hollystone Mysteries, I was teaching English full time, and I was super stressed out. And so I was looking for their freedom, their freedom to party and have a really great have a really great time. And they did all their witchcraft things and all that. So I can see that there. Lore is a little bit different. That's the new one that I've just got out now.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you know this at all, but I actually wrote Lure, The Bones of It 30 years ago. So yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. So I guess in a way, because I was leaving my ex-husband at the time I was writing it. And
Okay.
so, and it's a romance.
Ah, okay,
So
okay.
so my kind of desire for freedom and romance, I think has translated into that book.
So
Yeah.
now, walking away from it 30 years ago and then choosing to pick it back up now, what was
Yeah.
the catalyst to pick it back up now?
You know what? I just found the manuscript. I was like doing a Marie Kondo thing because I've been moving around, and I found it all wrapped up in brown paper, and I was like, oh wow, I should read that because it's been sealed for
Oh,
like, and
wow.
it's come on all the moves with me. And so I read it, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a romance. It's actually kind of interesting, and yeah. So I thought maybe I'll just rewrite it, and I started to rewrite it pretty close. I started out, yeah, pretty close to what it was, kind of flipping the pages and typing them up, and then everything just went, out the window because the woman found a skeletal hand in her shed, and that was
As
not
you
in the
do.
as they do, and yeah, yeah,
Okay,
and
they say that when you write a book, you should get some distance from it for like before you edit. Like, but don't they usually
Yeah,
say like 3 months?
3 decades.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure the 30 years. That's awesome.
It worked. I think it worked. I'm really happy with it. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome, though. Jenna, that gives you hope that, some of the things that may see the light of day, as you said before, is that like you may pick it up like 20 years down the road and say, hey, like I had something here. Let's see if I can re-tackle it
Mhm.
with a more mature, more experience, more life, just more of everything.
This is
And
why I saved all the stories I wrote when I was 10, because someday they'll be gold.
Hey, you don't know. You
you
really
never
don't know.
know.
I think you should save everything.
I
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
tend to. And
yeah.
that's the thing, because something, you might be starting to write something and you're like, I'm just not feeling it. You put it aside, but then 30 years later, you're like, I am feeling it. Or, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
have a new idea for this. And it's okay to jump projects.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually
Mhm,
you have to finish one, but it's okay
mhm,
to write a bit of this and then be like, it's not the right time, or I'm
mhm,
not I'm not experienced enough as a writer for it, or whatever it is. It's okay to have
mhm,
some things in a drawer, some things out for print and publication, and that's all part of the journey. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure
mhm, mhm,
painters don't every stroke that they make on the canvas is not
Something that they
genius.
put in a show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
mhm, mhm. For sure, for sure.
totally right.
Yeah,
Okay, so I have one last question before I'm going to pass the torch to Jenna. So
yeah.
you love to travel, obviously.
Mhm.
How has travel influenced your writing?
Well, I have been to everywhere I've written about. So, yeah, I always set my
Big,
my
it's a big
stories
influence.
into places where I have walked on the land.
Yeah.
And this one's no different. So in my Hollystone Mystery series, the first one is in Ireland. The last half of it's in Ireland, and I went there for that. And then the second one is in Scotland, and I went there for that. It's a good excuse to travel.
Of course. A
The
good
third,
write-off too, right?
yeah, yeah. The third one is in a yacht going up the BC coast, and I've been up there a fair bit because I was a lighthouse keeper for a while, and so yeah, so a lot of what they see in the third book, I saw as a lighthouse keeper. And then the fourth one, it's a time travel. So I didn't completely go there, but it's Iron Age Ireland again. So I did go back to Ireland and went to the hill where the king is inaugurated and executed and ritually murdered. So I stood on the top of that hill where he and looked out at his lands and everything, and that's really important. Yeah. And then with Lure is actually set in Minnesota. It's pretty close to you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Just a little south, like 7 hours ish.
Yeah, not too far.
No.
And I came from Ontario. So when I drove out west, I actually went through Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah.
And traveled through there, and I just love that country, and it's on a Chippewa reservation.
Yeah.
So I had studied with the Anishinaabe people in Ontario, and I was doing that at the time 30 years ago that I was writing this book. So there's a lot of Anishinaabe spirituality in it as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't stump you on that question. So
No. Travel's a good thing.
But now we have to have a separate podcast about lighthouse keepers.
Oh my God, I know. Thank you. I just watched Riverdance on Netflix, and they were lighthouse keepers, and it just made me so happy.
Riverdance lighthouse keepers. I'm what?
Yeah, right. Am I thinking of the right movie? Yeah. Oh my God, maybe I'm not.
Riverdance is those Irish dancers, right?
Yes.
And they were lighthouse keepers?
And the grandpa was a lighthouse keeper.
Oh, okay.
And then it was his grandson to like legacy with the lighthouse.
We lost it, but then we found you again, Miranda. It's all good.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Like if the marbles aren't in my mouth, I've lost them. They're gone.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I actually, just quickly, the book I just am finishing right now is set at one of the lighthouses that I worked at. And it's called The Lighthouse. And so we will have that conversation one day.
There you go.
Is it as eerie and creepy as I would think? Like a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere, all by yourself with big ocean waves. Like, is it like that?
Can be.
Like, do you see mermaids? Of course.
You see orcas, and you see humpbacks, and white-sided dolphins. Yeah, I've seen all of that. And some of them are haunted. And a friend of mine was just down who's been a keeper for 15 years. And she was telling me about some of the ghosts that she's seen out on the lights. And so it's kind of interesting because the girl in this story sees spirits. So just a really, really quick story. So one of the reasons I decided to set it at Nootka was because I was there one night and the keepers, there's always two of you. So I'd be in my house and then there would be another, always with a man, and he'd be in the other house. And they always said to me, you don't have to do anything else except the weather reports, which we do every 3 hours. Don't worry about any of the landscaping or cutting the lawn or any of that stuff, as long as you get up and do the early morning ones. So I would have to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning, depending on when daylight savings was. I know, right? And so I was going to bed at 7:30 at night so that I could wake up at 3 in the morning and not miss the weather. Right. And so one night I was right on. Now, Nootka Lighthouse, my house was on a rock, literally hanging off the Pacific Ocean. Okay,
oh my God.
That's how it was. And I was in my bed one night and I had just read all of this stuff about this massacre that happened out there with McQuina and the Moachuk people and the English, a British ship that had come in. And there was so many people died out there. There's a cemetery out there and it's very interesting. And all of a sudden my bed started to do this, right? And I'm holding on to my bed and it's going like this. And so the first thing I did is I got up and I looked at the bed and I was like, okay, guys, stop it. I was really sure it was spirits.
Oh, yeah.
And then I heard hi, we just had earthquake here. It was 6.4. Anybody feel it down the coast? And I was like, oh my God, it's actually an earthquake. It's a natural event. It's not a supernatural event. Yeah.
That would have been me. Yeah. I'd have been like, okay, I learned about you. I respect you. I am in your space. That would have been 100% my go-to.
And Miranda's a pretty new mom. She'd have the finger wag.
Oh, yes, I got that down pat.
Yeah. So I said, okay, I really have to use this as a setting. And
Oh, so I'm glad you did. I'm excited. Okay, I can't wait to have a lighthouse conversation. Okay, we can tangent back to Lure, where our attention deserves right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you talked about putting this manuscript or finding this manuscript from before, and also you've written plenty of books. So what is something either you wished you had known when you first started writing, or what is something you've learned along the way about writing in general, or your own process?
That is another stumpy question. I don't have any back pocket answers for these things. Something I've learned. You know what? I think I would have maybe tried to take writing a little bit more serious a little bit earlier than when I did. And I would have waited. So when I first put out To Charm a Killer, I put it out quite a while ago, and I was just like, I wrote this book, I just want to put it out there. So, you know, I just self-published it, and I think I would have tried harder. Tried harder to get a deal, maybe waited on things a little bit more. I'm not as quick to act now as I have been. So I'll hang on to something a little bit longer. 30 years is a good
That's a
good
record.
example of that.
That is a record, yeah.
Until she finds something from 40 years ago and she's like, I beat my own record.
No, that's a possibility too.
I could almost do that. I have some stuff from first grade.
Wow.
So give it a few years. And I tell you, first graders, they're good writers.
They are.
There does not have to be a plot. There does not have to be a point.
Imaginative.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So what to you, if you had to define a good story, what makes a good story to you?
Well, I think something that's gripping, first of all, you know, that's going to catch me. And that has something, like, personally, I would have to have something that I'm interested in. So, I mean, I can get gripped by a good cowboy story, you know, 1883, Yellowstone. Right?
Oh, Elsa was my spirit animal in 1883. And you know what? When season 2 comes out, you're gonna have to be the person that I text through the whole episode, because
so crazy.
There was nobody around to talk to when I was watching those episodes. The people are like, "What are you doing? Why are you watching that?" I'm like, because it is grip. It was poetic.
I'm a little bit in love with Taylor Sheridan. I'm gonna have to admit that right now. He is the most incredible writer. And I'm a little bit in love with Tim McGraw.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can he be my dad just for like a day in the wild, wild west?
Just the relationship. So again, back to your question. So what, like let's use that as an example. Yeah. I mean, what he does in that show is he rips our heartstrings out. I mean, he keeps us just on the edge of our chair, and it's slow. It's a slow moving show. There's no like big sensational stuff there, but it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Settlers travel across America for 10 episodes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every episode you're just like nail biting or bawling. The last episode, my partner came home. I said, "Don't come downstairs." He goes, "Why?" I'm like, "Because you do not want to see what I look like right now."
I know.
I'm just excited you guys get to watch adult shows, because I watch a lot of Paw Patrol, PJ Masks, Alvin and the Chipmunks.
I'm looking forward to those days, but I feel like I might just set up like a iPad and like, don't touch it. You can watch what you want on it. When mom watches TV, you can watch your TV.
It doesn't matter. You still hear about it. That's why I know about Cat Bird and Lady Noir or something. Who knows? It stays with you.
Do you guys know Dave and Ava?
No.
Oh, go to YouTube and look up Dave and Ava for your little girl. You've got a little one that's 1, right?
Yeah.
Like our baby, my grandson is living with me now. And like whenever we need him to just like calm down and focus, we put on Dave and Ava, and he's in love with Ava. And it's so cute. It's so cute. So check that out.
Yeah, I'll have to. I have I have a few subscriptions to YouTube channels that are appealed to kids. There's one that's always live, and this girl, she sings songs and does sign language and works on colors and words and this and that. And my kid has like a 4-minute attention span to something on TV, and then we'll just run laps in the house and scream because she's so excited for what God knows what reason. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. I put it on to keep you occupied, but it doesn't work. So
Do you know the one thing about kids shows though that they do well, and this is going to segue into my next question. I have
Okay.
is they do conflict really well. Like they
Yeah.
might present it and resolve it really quick, but they do conflict really well, and they offer a variety of conflict in that sometimes it's the villain, and like sometimes it's just literally the Ninja Turtles versus Shredder, but sometimes it's conflict within the group, or there's conflict with nature. And so even though we're kind of complaining as moms and grandmas here about Cocomelon or whatever, but we could take some life lessons from how they have a variety of conflict. So then we're running out of time, but I'd like your perspective on conflict in your books. How do you handle it? How do you make sure you have enough, but also like it affects the pacing of a book as well? You can't just have like murder.
No, and I don't. I mean, for Laura, the conflict, there's a lot of internal conflict that goes on with the characters. This is a romantic suspense novel, by the way. It's not urban fantasy anymore. It's actual just, two people out in the middle of the Chippewa reservation. And she is a vegan wildlife photographer, and he is a doctor that is hiding out in a cave because his wife died and he feels guilty about it. And so they have so much internal conflict there that when they kind of do the meet cute and they come together, he's shooting, she's looking at her camera lens at this beautiful buck that she's filming, and he shoots it with an arrow. And and she watches this whole thing while so she's livid. And then he makes a really big mistake by putting a venison roast on her porch, so to try and make up. But and anyway, so there's that, and then there's also conflict going on with some other characters that come into it, because it's romantic suspense. So there's a romance, but there's also a mystery line going on with this body who is a missing Indigenous girl who, and so there's the story. Her story is interwoven through it as well. So there's conflict in there, and like I think that conflict needs to be in every scene.
Yeah.
Otherwise we get bored. So
but it could be internal conflict. It could be external conflict.
Absolutely.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I remember being like, I don't know, 11 when the first Jurassic Park movie came out. And I remember reading a review, and it talked about how they really had a variety of conflict. Like first it was like people say, interpersonal conflict. Like, should you be having a dinosaur park? Shouldn't we? And then, the dinosaurs are. And then also like other things like trees and fences. And, they had, and probably the first time in my life I read a movie review, but I was just so excited to see it. But the idea that you had all these different conflicts, and there's constant conflicts, there's constant conflict in that movie, but it's always slightly different, so that it's not just dinosaur. It's also adults that are running off, and the kids are like, hey, and why you eyeing up my woman? Like all sorts of conflict in there. So it's probably why it's probably one of my favorite movies, just because
I agree. It's a classic. I mean, I watch it every once in a while just because it's cool. And I don't know about the other ones so much, but that first one with Sam Neill and Laura Linney. Is it Laura Linney? Yeah.
I think so.
Because she's just amazing. It's just great. And the little kids. And because Sam Neill's got that conflict around, he doesn't really dig little kids. And she kind of wants him to dig little kids. And
so you throw them in with the kids. That's good writing.
The kids.
Like, you don't want kids?
Yeah.
And I think that was a change they made from the original book, right?
Yeah.
There are things that work on books that don't work on film. And so you have to tell a story a lot quicker in film. So it's a good lesson to learn how to have a variety of conflict and throw all that in. So that's a great note to end on. We will we'll end with conflict. So now we have definitely intrigued everyone that's listening and everyone that's watching. They want to pick up all your books, and they want to stay in touch with you because they know what's coming in the future. So I know. So where can
you got to find this book
and your books? Yes. Where are they going
to go? To my website, which is right here, bluehavenpress.com.
bluehavenpress.com.
And that will lead you to wherever you need to go. Laura, I did just with Amazon this time. I just decided to try that out, and yeah, so it's there, and all the others you can find all over the place.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to include the link in the podcast when we do upload it after this live. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a wonderful, intriguing conversation, as it always is.
Yes.
And literally cannot wait till the next time. I'm going to watch Riverdance in preparation. And I think there's like a scary lighthouse movie that I recently watched too.
But I'm the one that has to do the podcast description for this. We talked about kids shows and lighthouses and Riverdance and Scotland. And so, But other than that tour that I got to do after this is fantastic. So
it was great. Thank you so much.
So much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just before we go, we need to send a big thank you to our show sponsors. So thank you to Creative Edge Publicity and the Writers Corner Network. And of course, all our viewers and all our listeners, you're the reason why this show is a success and why we do it. So thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.